After a month of flying, I've received another stand down notice, so that'll be stood down for another month, and then after that, who knows, looks domestically in the west like we're getting about 1 month on, 1 month off. So that'll give me some more time to get back to my golf and get that handicap even lower. So either way, all good. Hi, I'm Marty. I flew these with these, fly these with these, happy life, and then Corona. I started this channel to put out 2 messages. You are not alone, and a day with a laugh beats a day without one. So pull up a pew, you're amongst friends. Relax, laugh, or cry with me. Today's flight goes from Perth to Solomon. Solomon's one of the Fortescue Metal Group's iron ore mines. They've got about 2.86 billion tonnes of iron ore that eventually has to come out of the place.
Well, good morning YouTube. It's 6 in the morning and you could have fooled me. It looks like the middle of the mining boom. That's my aircraft coming in under tow. Things are going gangbusters here at 6 in the morning. Nothing to do but sit here and have the coffee my first officer bought me. How good's that? Thanks, Ben. Morning, I'm off to Solomon, which is probably the shortest and highest strip we go to here over in the Pilbara, and we're max all up weight for landing. So quite a challenging sector. Rob, I wish they'd stop that bloody bell. Too loud. Too loud. Hang on. What are you doing?
Move aeroplanes.
Move aeroplanes, and you've just been told me in your spare time you scratch-built F-16s.
One F-16,
Yeah.
One
How's coronavirus been, the whole experience so far?
Oh. You've got to beat that out.
Intercept information, ex-West taxi on all the way, mate, clear left.
When we're coming into these strips, we've got to work out which way we're going to land. That's normally dependent on the wind direction. It's very critical when we're landing heavy on a short strip. We do the performance calculations on the expected wind, but we also look at the worst case wind that we can accept. For example, the worst case would be a 10 knot tailwind today. We look at the aerodrome forecasts for nearby airfields if there's none for the actual airfield we're going to. We look at the actual weather reports from auto met stations. We talk to the staff on the ground or other aircraft on the ground, and in the end sometimes we just go back to as basic as looking at a truck driving on a dusty road and which direction the dust is coming from. Even then, on a small time frame and a small distance, the wind can change. It's not unusual to have tailwind on both runways at some of these strips. It makes it challenging but also very rewarding.
So this is Solomon, which is one of the Fortescue mines, Twiggy's mines. My goodness, it is gorgeous. I don't think the video is going to do it justice. It is like an Albert Namatjira painting. Just gorgeous. Look at that. So I'll just keep you up to date. We just flew from Perth up to Solomon. The views on the way in are just amazing. It's one of our favourite places to come to. A lot of high relief geography around. In wintertime it's gorgeous. In summertime it can be a handful because that topography can create some bumps and quite a bit of turbulence for the approach. Very short runway and a high altitude runway for our operation, so this is one of the more demanding ones to fly into. On the way up, we had our head-up display. The glass that I use in front of me had a fault light indicating, so I did the approach without the head-up display, which was pretty interesting. Pulled off an okay landing despite that, and then what we do is we ring Maintenance Watch, which is our boffins in Sydney, and they were able to direct me in a way to fix it, which was in effect just jiggling a couple of switches, and it came good. We'll still write it up for a check when we get back into Perth. Very busy this morning, very busy. We had to wait a little bit before pushback, which is very odd because I'm used to the COVID sort of tempo, and yet the mining in the Perth looks like it's up and running like it ever was. Little Qantas Link aircraft came in ahead of us. He was traffic for us, offloaded his passengers, and he's already taxiing now, even as I'm doing my walk around and refuel. So the tempo up here is still looking pretty interesting, and here he comes. Hope you enjoyed that little mini documentary on the Perth to Solomon leg. I've only got one more flight up to Fortescue Day Forest tomorrow, and then I've got the next month off as well. I'm only doing these little mini documentaries to try and just involve any of the guys that are stood down. If you get anything out of it, that's the aim of it. It's in no way meant to say, hey, I'm flying and you're not. It's meant to just share with you what's going on operationally at work and show you a little bit of the West. Today, Victoria has just shut its borders again and has just had its second lockdown. I think they had close to 200 new cases overnight, bringing up to something like 2,400 of cases in the state. So they've had to take drastic measures. So if anybody's in Victoria, I'm feeling for you guys. And of course, that's going to delay everything domestically as well. So for the domestic pilots, as you saw in West Australia, it's sort of firing on a couple of the cylinders. We seem to be doing a lot of fly in, fly out work, but clearly not around the country. And I see some of the bases like Adelaide doing zero flying. Obviously, long haulers are in an even more extreme situation. And I certainly noticed the language recently has been shifting towards years rather than months. And in fact, obviously the other day they announced those voluntary redundancies, which should be announced shortly. It's interesting, along the way I've seen on various sites what pilots are doing in the interim as a secondary means of income. Obviously you've got JobKeeper, but I've seen everything from farming, being a traffic lollipop man, bee removal, mining, driving the big trucks, driving any sorts of trucks, nursing home work, people working in supermarkets. One guy is washing solar panels on roofs. He's cranked up his own business. Cleaning in schools, and guys have obviously rejoined the Defence Force. So all sorts of things guys are turning to. Obviously in the short term, my message is the same as always. I think it's a good message, and I'm going to say it again. Get a meal on your table, a roof over your head, lower the bar, call a mate, and if you need help, so go for it. You're not alone. Exercise and meditation helps. Try to stay off the things that don't do you good, and booze for me, and I think for most of us, is the obvious one. It might feel good, but it doesn't help in the long term. So dry July, that's probably a good thing to do right now. And I think if you find yourself getting in that little wrapped around the axle situation, drop the booze, increase the exercise. It's probably better than any drug you could possibly take. You are not alone. This is stressful for everyone. You are not alone in any of the feelings that you're feeling right now. On that note, during this month back at work, I managed to break one of the company speed restrictions. Pretty small on the big scale of things flying wise, but that tip of the iceberg had big repercussions for me, and it bled into my home life. Because of that, I've personally sought help. I went and saw my GP because I wasn't feeling 100%, especially in the home environment. And I've gone to see my GP, and I'm also going to ring up that EAP, and you're due 6 free counselling sessions you can go to. I've used them in the past with my home life when I found my home life starting to be a bit ragged around the edges, and it really helped me. That's why I'm going back to it again, and I'll do probably 6 sessions. Mainly they just tell you just to lower the bar and to meditate, and they get you to just realistically look at your situation. On that, we've talked about the short-term thing of just getting the roof over your head and the meal on the table. Probably if I'm a long haul guy, I'd be looking at the long term. What am I going to do if we're talking 3 years? What am I going to do with those 3 years? Now, it could just be sitting at home and lowering the bar and just waiting, and that's a completely fine solution. I'd say involve your partner if you can in this sort of stuff. Look at all the different things and ask yourself, what would you like to actually do with those 3 years? So many variables obviously impinge on that decision. So the dollars that you've got right now, the time it'll take to retrain to the thing you want to do, your age, your partner's wishes, your family's wishes, and your wishes. You've got to balance all those out. But never forget you are able to reinvent yourself. If this is the end of your flying career, it is not the end of you. You are exactly the same sort of fantastic woman or man that you ever were. And on that note, I'm going to give you a little story that I know of a dad who, about our age, had to make a really hard decision. He was posted to Kalgoorlie as a teacher, and his family were very entrenched in Perth, and they didn't want to leave Perth. So they had a family meeting, and he took the most courageous decision to give up being a teacher. He gave up being a teacher. They bought a toy store here in Perth, a very successful toy store, and had a fantastic second career. And his family really enjoyed having him around, and they enjoyed working in the store. The boy in that family has ended up being one of our first tosses on the A330, and he is a magnificent human being. So there's a good example of a way you can reinvent yourself. The old movie Benjamin Button has a great scene where Brad Pitt has grown from old to young, and as he gets very young, he has this great scene where he heads off to the Himalayas, and it says you're never ever too old to reinvent yourself. And I really think that's a great message. Finally, I'll leave you with a saying of the day, which I think really matches what we're going through. Old Churchill, one of the best, said, "When the going gets tough, keep going." Obviously, another quote would be, "This too shall pass." I'll keep making these videos. I know that it's been a little while since I put out the last video. As a result, I think I lost about 20 or 30 subscribers. Sorry, guys. It's just going to be sporadic, and when I think I've got something to say that in some way can help, my message remains the same. You're not alone, and a day with a laugh beats a day without a laugh. On that note, here's the joke of the day. I've just heard a great joke. Got it off the internet, as I get most of my jokes. This woman gets on a bus with her baby, and she's paying the bus driver. And the bus driver goes, "Holy hell! That is the ugliest baby I've ever seen!" And she's shocked. She's got tears in her eyes, and she walks down to the back of the bus and sits down with the baby on the back seat. And she says, "Oh, you'll never believe," she says to the bloke sitting there, she goes, "You'll never believe what the driver just said to me. He just said the most insulting thing to me." "Oh, that's terrible. Look, you go back up the front of that bus and give him a serve, and I'll hold your monkey for you." Don't you know, you're not alone. Don't fall for that trap, so far from home. So come in now, come in from the cold. There's a fire inside, and people you know. Yeah, that'll do.